he stated during that summit, he said that with vision, resilience, El-Rufai turned rotten situation to a bad one. I'm sure a lot of Nigerians want to understand what that meant. Help us make meaning of that.
Well, to the best of my knowledge, I know that when you turn a rotten situation to a bad one, I mean, it is like getting something from good to better, because rotten is worse than being bad. So it's just like getting something from good to better. Even if you don't achieve the best, at least you have moved a step forward. So,
or more like from worse to bad?
Yeah, something like that. I think practically that's what it implies.
All right, let's start our conversation today taking our quote from William F. Weld, an American attorney, businessman, author, and politician. He once said, "If a party stands for nothing but re-election, it indeed stands for nothing." All right, so we'll take our second quote, and this one is from ABAT Naskar. He is one of the world's famous neuroscientists and an unretiring advocate of global harmony and peace. He once said, "Religion was the opium for the masses of yesterday. Politics is the opium for the masses of today." All right, let's see how all of this goes relate to what we'll be discussing tonight. Very warm greetings and welcome to The Conversation. We're reaching you from Kaftan's Television here in the nation's capital, Abuja. Of course, I am Annabelle Oji. Now, today on the show, let's see how all of this will be targeted towards who or what we'll be discussing. And now today we'll be discussing APC in 2023. We'll be talking about Senator Bola Ahmed Tinubu and his probabilities, or how credible is his candidacy for 2023. Our guest on the show tonight is Mohammed Mijiyawa. He is the National Secretary, APC Youths Stakeholders Forum, and he will be doing justice to our topic of discuss tonight. You're welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Annabelle.
Awesome. All right, now let's talk about your forum, your group. Now, you are the National Secretary, APC Youth Stakeholders Forum. What exactly do you do when you congregate?
Yeah, thank you once again for having me, Annabelle. And I'm a member, just sorry to correct that, I'm a member of the ABAT Media Center, the Ashaj Bola Ahmed Tinubu Media Center. And I am also the National Secretary of the APC Youth Stakeholders Forum. Now, the APC Youth Stakeholders Forum, it's a forum that walks the talk. Initially, we formed the forum to bridge in the gap that we have in the party, in the youth wing of the party. Now, going forward, our focus has been on our candidates canvassing votes for His Excellency Ashaj Bola Ahmed Tinubu and His Excellency Kashim Shettima. We've been into nooks and crannies of the country, different parts of the country, states, and we've been advocating and championing the cause of this ticket. And we are defined by three things. First of all, we are defined by grassroots mobilization. Secondly, we are defined by the media. And thirdly, we are defined by innovation. These are the three things as youth that we leverage on and give our maximum contributions on. So this is it for now.
Okay, because you mentioned Senator Bola Ahmed Tinubu and Kashim Shettima. Now let's talk about that. Now, with regards to the same faith ticket that has actually raised a lot of brows and then been controversial for some time now. But then we saw that your presidential candidate still went ahead with the same faith ticket. Like some Nigerians will say, they damned the consequences. So now, according to them, they say it looks like Nigerians can rant all they want, but government still will do what government wants to do. So in that regard, what are your thoughts?
Well, thank you. First of all, we need to realize that we are first humans before religion comes in. Secondly, integrity, capacity, and the ability to deliver comes before religion as far as the presidency of Nigeria is concerned. When you look at these three factors, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu has fulfilled these criteria, as well as his running mate as well, Senator Kashim Shettima. You know, just like you said, the quote that you just mentioned, religion is the opium of the people in the past, and we, since we've passed that era, we shouldn't allow religion to be the opium, I mean the poison of this nation, because it is one thing, one factor that retards the development of any nation. So before you consider religion first, you have to consider these three things I mentioned: capacity, ability to deliver, and credibility.
So regardless of what Nigerians are saying, even some stakeholders from your party saying that that same faith ticket is actually not a good thing, you still think that, well, we're going on with it, so regardless.
Well, if you look at Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu's administration when he was the governor of Lagos, it's an administration that is that has accommodated different people irrespective of their tribes, religion, and ethnicities. Now, if you look at his personal life, he is a Muslim and his wife is a Christian. She is a pastor, a matter of fact. So they've been together for over 30 years. So that alone should tell you how a man of unity he is. He doesn't see religion as an obstacle, and he isn't defined by sentiment. So I think Nigerians should look at those factors which are more important as far as the presidency of Nigeria is concerned.
I'm sure you're also referring to some of the stakeholders of your party that actually are going against the same faith ticket.
Yeah, I'm referring to literally Nigerians at large, that if you look at the presidency, the presidential seat, if just take a look at President Muhammadu Buhari, he's not defined by his religion. He is not defined by any sentiment of religion, ethnicity, or tribe. He is a man of unity, and that is exactly how Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu is. You know, if we take, whenever you see people attacking religion, that is secondary. I mean, it's not even secondary, because when they fail to find you, maybe to find your flaws in integrity, flaws in the ability to deliver, flaws in credibility and capacity, then they tend to look at other secondary factors which are not as important as the primary factors which Nigerians should focus on.
Now let's talk about your candidate, your presidential candidate, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, and his state of health. Now, there've been a lot of talks in that regard, but then, let me ask you personally, in your closet, aside the advocacies that you do for the ABAT Media Center, aside all of that, in your closet, would you actually say that Senator Bola Ahmed Tinubu should go on with this in that regard?
Yeah, of course. I mean, that is why we are out, and that is why, as the youth, for the first time in the history of Nigeria, the youth are championing this cause, because Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu is not just only for Nigerians, but he's for the youth as well. I mean, he has the youth at heart. If you take a look at his state of health, physically he's able, and mentally he's able. And you know, the presidency of Nigeria is not a football competition or a bricklaying. The presidency of Nigeria is about the ability of thinking, the critical thinking, the foresight, how you manage what you have. I mean, your brain, how you invested, the capacity you have. And I mean, these are the things we should be looking at, because whoever is 70 years old, of course, you shouldn't expect him to be someone like 25 or 30 years. But when you look at him and the ability to get the job done, then he's A-class, and none is second to him.
I hear you say A-class. Now,
yeah.
Let's stay on that, and I'll talk about media tourism, which has actually been one of the bone of contention or discourse, or national discourse in Nigeria. Most presidential candidates come and then they go, and then they keep talking about how much, when they are voted in, they will stop medical tourism, so that at least Nigeria should get enough revenues in terms of IGR and then save enough forex. Now let's talk about that medical tourism rather. We've seen how much your presidential candidate has traveled abroad in order to take care of himself, his health, and then go for checkups and all. So how much will you say if he becomes the president, he would be able to touch on that medical tourism?
Well, thank you. I'm very happy campaigning and championing this cause of the Ashoji Bola Ahmed Tinubu and Senator Kashim Shettima mandate, because these are people that they just don't talk, but they have a verifiable achievement track records. And when you look back at what they did during their administrations, you can see how Ashoji Bola Ahmed Tinubu has impacted the healthcare system of Lagos State. He has done very much well in the healthcare system. And a lot of things we tend to leverage on or capitalize on hearsay. I mean, these are some media propaganda. Sometimes he travels to London for other private activities and not for medical checkups. So it is not always that Ashoji Bola Ahmed Tinubu travels to London, he travels for...
But we've seen pictures, we've seen videos, we've seen how many times he went to see his doctors abroad.
No, but have you ever seen, in the recent times, do you see him in a medical hospital? I guess not. So,
the last time he traveled, didn't he go for medical checkup?
No, I don't think so. He didn't. So to the best of my knowledge, a lot of times Ashoji Bola Ahmed Tinubu travels to London. He travels for his own personal reasons and not necessarily medical reasons.
So now if we have to talk about the medical tourism, shouldn't they be thinking of how much they can build hospitals, clinics in Lagos nationally instead of traveling abroad for checkups?
He has an innovation, the privatization of healthcare delivery in Lagos State. That alone has helped and impacted the lives of millions of Lagosians, and it has improved the standard of the healthcare system in Lagos. So when you look back at his antecedents, the track records in terms of the healthcare subsector, you'll see that he has done very much well.
Now, because you keep talking about Lagos, anytime they want to talk about Ashoji Bola Ahmed Tinubu and his antecedent, the first thing that comes to most APC stakeholders, the first thing they want to talk about is what he has done in Lagos State. And then now, my question is, how much would he bring all of this experience to the national level? Now, let's leave Lagos State, even though we know that he has been a senator at a time. Yeah. How much will he bring hands-on experience down to Lagos State, even though we always have that argument with regards to who built Lagos? Is it Bola Tinubu, or is it Babajide Raji Fashola, or is it Ambode? That argument has always been there. Yeah. But now let's bring back to the national level. If he becomes president, how much will he bring hands-on experience in all of the sectors?
Well, according to an article written by Financial Times, they quoted the Emir Sunusi Lamido Sunusi saying that Lagos has created a template for Nigeria, and that is what we need at the national level. Now, if you talk about Lagos as the architect of model Lagos, definitely it is Ashoji Bola Ahmed Tinubu. And one thing that God gave him is the talent to pitch out, it's the ability to pitch out talent, to pitch out, to bring out the best of people. I mean, when you look at the youth he worked with when he was the governor of Lagos, when you look at the women he worked with, when you look at the general cabinet, he has that eye of bringing the best in individuals and utilizing the strength of each individual he's working with in transforming a city and a nation like Nigeria at large.
Okay. Now, because you mentioned the Emir, the former CBN governor, that's Sanusi Lamido Sanusi. Now, I'm going to take some of the statements that he made recently during the CADINVEST summit that was held last weekend. Now, according to him, he said, anybody who tells you it's going to be easy, please don't vote for such person, because he's either lying to you or he does not know what the job entails. Now, with regards to all of that, a lot of statements were made during that summit. But now let's start with what he stated. For your candidate, is it really going to be easy for him? death talk, you talk about health, education, quite a lot of humongous, when if he has to go into office, he has a very deep shoe to fit into. Yeah. Is he really ready for that feat?
Well, he has never said it will be easy, but rather it is possible. And he has demonstrated that practically when he was the governor of Lagos. Let's take an instance at the economic system of Lagos then, 1999. Lagos was generating roughly about 600 million naira a month as IGR. Now, before he departed from office, Lagos was generating around 8 billion naira in a month. That is more than 1,000% increase. It has never been done by any governor in the history of Africa. Now, if someone can do that, of course, you know that he can transform Nigeria as well. But just like I said, he has never said it's going to be easy, but it is going to be difficult since he has demonstrated that capacity and the ability to get it done.
But that's been a long time. We have our peculiarities right now. What you have in 2022 is far different from what you had in 1999.
Yeah.
So
yeah, but when you look at the economic situation, then how he transformed the state, first of all, we have different advantages today. One of the advantages we have is technology, and it is one sector that has been making impact if you look at the developments, the growth development of different countries. Now today we have technology, we have so many things at abundance. Now when he did that in Lagos, remind you, there was no federal government allocation, yet he transformed Lagos into that state. Now, if you look at the how difficult it was to transform Lagos into a modern city of today, then I believe he can replicate that in Nigeria, and Nigeria is going to be a success story.
Okay. Just on a lighter note, we'd like to get your thoughts on one of the statements that we've made. And according to him, he stated during that summit, he said that with vision, resilience, El-Rufai turned rotten situation to a bad one. I'm sure a lot of Nigerians want to understand what that meant. Help us make meaning of that.
Well, to the best of my knowledge, I know that when you turn a rotten situation to a bad one, I mean, it is like getting something from good to better, because rotten is worse than being bad. So it's just like getting something from good to better. Even if you don't achieve the best, at least you have moved a step forward. So
or more like from worse to bad.
Yeah, something like that. I think practically that's what it implies.
All right then. So now let's talk about other things. Let's talk about youths. You are the National Secretary of the APC Youth Forum. Let's talk about that in that regard. Now, and a lot of people tell you that for years, decades, they've always, even centuries, our great-grandparents, they always tell you that in their own days that they were told that the youth are the future leaders of tomorrow. And even up until now, we still keep hearing that statement. Now, in that regard, and then you still also have the Not Too Young to Run bill that was recently signed into law by this current administration. Now, if you're talking about that, you now have a bill or an act, a law stating that youth can actually run. Now they don't only have to put their thumb where their mouth is, but now they can actually make decisions at the echelon of whatever institutions. Now, in that regard, how come you as a youth, are you not looking forward to me as a youth or other youths, we should take over power? Like they say, it is YouthO'Clock. For you, is it really YouthO'Clock?
Yeah.
If you keep supporting Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu.
Yeah, definitely it's YouthO'Clock for me and for the Nigerian youth as well. Now, what happened in the past was youth don't really walk the talk. They're more being keyboard warriors, being online, campaigners. But if you look at the peculiarity of this election and how things are going, we have decided to champion the cause ourselves practically. Like I told you, we've been into nooks and crannies of the country canvassing votes for our candidate. Now, this is how you obtain a seat at the table. It's not by saying you are a youth, but by practically demonstrating that ability and capacity of you being the youth. And for Ashwaji Bola Ahmed Tinubu, if you take him as an individual, he has said, and practically it is proven that he has been helping individuals for the past 30 years. Now, some of the beneficiaries of the good works, of Ashwaji Bola Ahmed Tinubu, some of them are in their 50s. Now, if you subtract 30 from, for instance, 50 or 55, some of them are in their early or mid-20s. So this is someone that has the youth at heart, and that is why, as the Nigerian youth, as the APC youth, as a Northern youth, for that matter, I have decided to champion this cause, to go into nooks and crannies, to be innovative and to advocate for this mandate.
Now, taking a cue from where you just landed, are you actually indirectly saying that the Not Too Young to Run Act is just hogwash?
No, it's not. If you look at the number of, for instance, in my party, the number of youth we have who are contesting for different seats, it is quite impressive. And every day we are making steps forward. And like I told you, initially the mistake or the perception of the youth is that since we are the youth, then they have to do with us, but it's not. That's not the case. The case is when you are the youth, you have to demonstrate that practically. I mean, you have to utilize and make use of the energy you have, the time you have, and the brain you have into ensuring that Nigeria is a better place. And this is what we are doing at this exact moment.
So you don't see a youth becoming the next president in 2023?
No, well, Annabelle, the truth of the matter is having someone who has the youth at heart is more important than having the youth as a president.
So we should just let aside the age. It should be the ones that are youth at heart.
Exactly. That's what I'm trying to say. I'm not disputing the fact that there's no youth that is able to, but what I'm trying to say is for someone who has the youth at heart, who always put the youth first, he may be more important. He may have more impact on the youth than someone who is just the youth, because, for instance, if you take a look at my candidate, Ashwaji Bola Ahmed Tinubu, he has helped so many youth in the past years. Like I told you, just like I mentioned earlier, he has been helping people for the past 30 years. And some of these beneficiaries, some of them are governors, some of them are occupying positions of influence. Today, they're in their 50s and 60s. Now, if you subtract that 30, most of them are in their 20s and early 30s.
So what exactly has the presidential candidate, what has he promised you as a youth, or your other youth that you're talking to, or that you are trying to, I'm trying to find the right word, that you're actually campaigning with? Yeah. What kind of promises has he even given you in come 2023? How much is he going to put youth to become the heads of ministries? How much, what are the campaign promises, or what are the promises or the blueprint that he's letting aside for the youth?
Well, first of all, the policy document is not out, but one thing that is important, look, talk is cheap, and we don't do talking in the APC. You know what we do? We look back at antecedents, we look back at track records, we look back at the time when these individuals, these candidates were given these opportunities, how, in what way, and in what form they utilized that opportunity, how they accommodated the youth in their cabinet. That's what we do in the APC. So without waiting for Ashwaji Bola Ahmed Tinubu to make a promise for the youth, looking back at his at what he did in Lagos and how he accommodated the youth irrespective of their ethnicity, religion, and the gender as well. That enough is a calming thing for us as the youth of Nigeria. We've seen what he did, and without a doubt, we are going to support him, and we have high hopes that he will replicate what he did in Lagos to Nigeria.
So you just hold on to what they've done in the past, and that's what you're holding on to.
Like I told you,
even though the campaign and notes and the manifestos are not out.
Yeah, the policy document is not out, but like I told you, Annabelle, talk is cheap. People make failed promises. We've seen how 70 to 80% of the politicians we have been making continuous failed promises, and this is what we don't look at this critical situation. What we do is look at antecedents, and when these people were given the opportunities, how and what they demonstrated practically. This is what tells you who is who and what distinguishes this from that.
I hear you keep saying talk is cheap. Antecedent. We're going to get right to where you just landed. Let's go on a quick break, and when we return, the conversation continues. I'll see you shortly. Now let's go back to Nigeria. Insecurity. Would you actually say that insecurity, especially in the north, northeast, northwest, would you actually say that insecurity has been obliterated?
Well, before the emergence of President Muhammadu Buhari as the president of Nigeria, he has made promises that he will fight insecurity and making emphasis on Boko Haram. Now that Boko Haram was not there in the northwest, they were in the northeast, and he has tried his best. About at least 95% of Boko Haram has been wiped away from the northeast, and people can travel safely to the northeast, and that is where he capitalized on. Now,
did you say people can travel safely to the northeast?
Yeah, I traveled to about 3 states in the northeast just recently, and I traveled.
But then the train has been shut down for weeks.
Yeah, the train is in the northwest, but I'm telling you what the promise President Muhammadu Buhari made regarding fighting Boko Haram, and specifically in the northeast. If you look at the kidnappings happening in the Abuja-Kaduna expressway. That has not happened for the past 5 to 6 months since May, and the government has been doing very well in terms of fighting insurgency.
You mean the Abuja-Kaduna? We even saw a recent report this morning saying that there were some kidnappings around that area.
You know, I don't want to say this, but actually, as journalists, I believe you should be able to verify facts. I mean, you should be able to verify whatever you see on the social media before, saying this.
These are not social media claims. A lot of, when you go to, we take reports, we take street reports from especially the drivers around that area, going to that, applying that axis. They tell you that they're just in the hands of God, and that's it.
No, but the truth of the matter is, I was in Kaduna just a week ago, and
maybe you're just 1 out of 100.
So many of us, I've never heard of this to the best of my knowledge.
If you just joined us, this is The Conversation. We're reaching you from Kaftan's Television here in the nation's capital, Abuja. If you just joined us, you're right on time for the interview, even though you've missed out on a lot, but then you can still join in the conversation. Our guest on the show tonight is Mohammed Mijiyawa. He is a member of ABAT Media Forum.
Center.
Oh, Media Center. All right. So now, before we went on that break, we actually talked we've talked about a lot of things, and then we were rolling out some of the antecedents of your presidential candidate. Now let's talk about your party, looking at all of the promises that they made before they came into power. They talked about fighting corruption. They talked about stabilizing the economy, and then they talked about insecurity. Now, in that regard, if we have to take them one after the other, if we talk about the insecurity, we've seen how much insecurity has degenerated in the last 7 years or more. And then if you have to talk about the economy, we've seen the precipitous decline of our national currency compared with other global currencies. And then we've actually seen, with regards to the youth, the over 33% unemployment rate. And now if we have to come down to corruption, that's another kettle of fish entirely. We've seen how much termites, monkeys, snakes have swallowed billions of naira in Nigeria. We've actually also seen the wrath in the oil sector. If we have to leave mentioning all of this now. Now talking about, in terms of all of this, how much, or what exactly do you tell the youth when you want to go and campaign? What are your strategies? What is your party? What is your presidential candidate? What is he campaigning on exactly? Even if you have to talk, the youth that you're still going to talk to, they are the same youth that have been at home for over 8 months, even though they just called off the strike. They've been at home for over 8 months. So what exactly do you tell this youth when you go to campaign?
Well, thank you very much, Annabelle. But as far as I am concerned, and as far as the majority of Nigerians are concerned, the administration of President Muhammadu Buhari has tried well in terms of all these sectors. Now, people tend to look at what they just see without looking at the bigger picture. Now, if you take a look at the economy, we've seen how the world was in global crisis due to the COVID-19, how it has affected different economies, different developed nations of the world. We've seen how the war in Ukraine has affected economies as well, how the oil prices, the global oil price has crashed and a lot of those stuff. Now,
but the war in Ukraine just started. It's not been there for years, 7 years.
Yeah, I mean,
coronavirus is 2020.
This is one of the factors. I mean, I'm saying, apart from that, when in 2015, we've seen how there was a global crash in oil prices, how it went down from 140 to roughly about $30 to $40 per barrel. And these are some factors that people need to look at. You don't just look at where you see. You tend to, as far as you are a Nigerian, you have to be fair to the administration by looking at the bigger picture. Now, if you take a look at the economy as well, going further, this administration has done well in terms of human capital development. We've passed the economies of so many countries in terms of the intervention by the government. Now, if you take a look at the social investment programs done by the government, the conditional cash transfer, the trader money, the Empower, the school feeding program, and a lot of those programs we had to get accolades from and encouragements from and different tokens of appreciation from different organizations, including the World Bank, for our achievement in that sector. Now, as far as we are concerned, and as far as and to be fair to this administration, they've done very, very well in terms of human capital development and subsequently the economy at large. Although we faced a lot of challenges, which are expected in any administration, but I believe what we did is beyond. Our achievements are beyond our flaws.
So with regards to corruption, they say they will fight corruption, but we've seen how much a lot of people who are net debt, who go into corruption, they've been let loose. So how far would your presidential candidates even fight corruption, even when we've heard these promises quite a lot of time, humongous times, and then it's still there?
Yeah, you see, whenever a politician makes a promise, or whenever an individual in general makes a promise, the most important thing is sincerity of purpose. Now, the intentions of this administration, they have demonstrated it practically that they are truly fighting corruption. Now, you are as humans, as an administration, we are definitely going to experience flaws in one way or the other, and we admit to having those flaws. But in general, if you'll be fair enough to us, you'll see that we have done more good than harm to the country in terms of fighting corruption.
So you agree that your administration, your party, have fought corruption?
Yeah, our party have fought corruption, and going further, looking at our candidate, he's someone that him and his running mate, His Excellency Bola Tinubu and Senator Kashim Shettima, are two people that are incorruptible in the sense that they've never found them guilty.
Are you saying the other people were not incorruptible?
No, I'm talking about these candidates that Nigerians should be focusing on going further in 2023, because these are the people that that Nigerians are going to be looking at. What are you going to bring different to the table? Now, if you take a look at Bola Tinubu during and after his entire administration, he has never been found guilty by any court in regards with corruption case. Now, similar goes with His Excellency Kashim Shettima. But if you take a look at the other candidates and their running mates, now in the book titled My Watch by Olusegun Obasanjo, on page 31 and 49, he has made some statements regarding some corruption that are related to the presidential candidate of the PDP. Now, these are allegations.
Even they still are alleged.
Yeah, these are allegations, but when you don't come out to clarify, I think these allegations turn to I think there's a tendency that these allegations might be true.
But you also have allegations with regards to your presidential candidate talking about the Eco-Atlantic, if he was the one that built the Eco-Atlantic, or the Shaburis and all of that.
Yeah.
You have allegations in that regard. And then you say that he and Kashim Shettima, they're incorruptible.
Yeah.
But then President Muhammadu Buhari was incorruptible before he came into the
He's still incorruptible.
He's still incorruptible.
Yeah,
but then you have corrupt people in his cadre, in his administration.
Like I told you, an administration is made of thousands of individuals, and you cannot have total control of those, of the sincerity of purpose of those individuals that make up your cabinet. But the most important thing is your intentions, the sincerity of purpose you have as an administrator. Now, if you take a look at the other candidates, when you compare them with ours, none is close in terms of being clean as far as corruption is concerned, like ours. Now, if you take a look at recently the vice presidential, the running mate of the presidential candidate of the PDP, a group called Delta Center for the Democracy and Good Integrity, Delta Center for Integrity and Good Governance. They came out and asked the EFCC to investigate an allegation of $3 million that is allegedly being paid by the running mate to some party officials, and yet that the running mate has not came out to clarify that statement. Now, secondly, on the 27th day of April 2022, the Deputy President of the Senate, Senator Oviomo Agege, came out and he made an allegation which is yet to be clarified as well by His Excellency Governor Okowa regarding corruption and the reckless borrowing, and the borrowing is there. It is proven that he has borrowed 150 billion naira just some months to the end of his term. So if you take a look at these people that we are running with, we are so much better than them in terms of being honest, in terms of integrity, and in terms of capacity as well.
Now you say people that you are running with, and we recall how much Kashim Shettima was accused of having some kind of religious sentiment. What are your thoughts on that? Well,
he has proven people wrong, and he has clearly came out to dispute those allegations against him. And this is what this is exactly my point, that whenever an allegation is made against you, you have to come out and clarify and tell the people what the actual reality is. Now, let me give you an instance. The television channel, they accused Ashwaji Bola Ahmed Tinubu of being corrupt, and they even went further, and they had a documentary. They did a documentary, The Lion of Bodilion, regarding him. He filed a lawsuit of 150 billion naira in the court of law against them, and they had to beg him to go out and settle that matter outside the court because they couldn't settle. And it was very clear that those allegations were truly false. And this is what you do as a leader. You come out and dispute the allegations that are made against you.
Now let's go back to Nigeria. Insecurity. Would you actually say that insecurity, especially in the north, northeast, northwest, would you actually say that insecurity has been obliterated? Well,
before the emergence of President Muhammadu Buhari as the president of Nigeria, he has made promises that he will fight insecurity, and making emphasis on Boko Haram. Now, that Boko Haram was not there in the northwest. They were in the northeast, and he has tried his best. About at least 95% of Boko Haram has been wiped away from the northeast, and people can travel safely to the northeast, and that is where he capitalized on. Now,
did you say people can travel safely to the northeast?
Yeah, I traveled to about 3 states in the northeast just recently, and I traveled.
But then the train has been shut down for weeks.
Yeah, the train is in the northwest, but I'm telling you what the promise President Muhammadu Buhari made regarding fighting Boko Haram, and specifically in the northeast. But going further, you definitely have to expect a lot of insurgencies. I mean, with how terrorism has become a global crisis in the world. Now, we admit that we faced a lot of challenges in the northwest and in some part as well of the country, but the government is doing well. And now, if you look at the kidnappings happening in in the Abuja-Kaduna expressway, that has not happened for the past 5 to 6 months since May. And the government has been doing very well in terms of fighting insurgency in that area.
You mean the Abuja-Kaduna? We even saw a recent report this morning saying that there were some kidnappings around the area.
You know, I don't want to say this, but actually, as journalists, I believe you should be able to verify facts. I mean, you should be able to verify whatever you see on the social media before, I mean, saying this.
These are not social media claims. A lot of, when you go to, we take reports, we take street reports from especially the drivers around that area, going to that, applying that access. They tell you that they're just in the hands of God, and that's it.
No, but the truth of the matter is, I was in Kaduna just a week ago, and
maybe you're just 1 out of 100.
So many of us, I've never heard of this to the best of my knowledge. And if you take a look at how the road was, there were actually security agents every here and there of the road. And I think, to be fair to this government, they are doing well in terms of fighting insecurity.
I'll ask you again. They're doing well in terms of fighting insecurity. Final answer.
Yeah, they are.
Okay.
Of course.
All right. Now let's talk about. I'll go back to my question when I asked you about the youth. What exactly? What are your campaign? What do you bargain with? What do you tell the youth when you talk to them? Vote Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu and Kashim Shettima, the same youth that have been at home for over 8 months. What exactly do you talk to them about?
Well, I'm very happy with the fact that our Nigerian youth are intelligent, our Nigerian youth are educated, and they are now going forward. They tend to look at the bigger picture without just making judgments based on what they see on the media. Now, the Nigerian youth understood that from the government aspect, they did well, and they're doing very much well. This ASO strike that you talked about is an inherited problem. And it is something that the federal government has been battling to see how they can curb the issue. And I believe since it has been addressed, the issue has been addressed, which initially was not, formed. The problem was not formed during this administration. It was an inherited problem. I think this administration has done not bad as well.
Now, if you look at the crowd, even though they say social media crowd, the kind of crowd that other political parties, they generate, does it bother you? Do you have some kind of fear? Because especially, you know that the youth are already with those political parties, that now they even call them the social media electorate. Does it in any way, do you feel like, okay, I'm scared because of this crowd? Does it bother you in any way?
There was a saying that I can't really recall by Malam Amin Kano that never be moved by a crowd because some crowds may be rented, and a lot of these crowds are rented. And I can tell you without a penny that APC is the largest party in Africa, and it has the largest followership when it comes especially to youth and women. So we are not moved by a crowd, we are not moved by these social media warriors, but we are moved by issues that are defined by the actual reality of what is happening on ground. And when you talk about electorates, the APC has the electorates, they have the numbers to win the election. So whatever we see on the media, we know that they're either most of it are rented, and practically they cannot account for these crowds they have.
Now, what are your campaign strategies? Because I ask because we've seen some videos where you have APC members knocking at people's door and giving them recharge cards of 3,000 or more and asking them to vote Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Aside that, what else do you have as your campaign strategy?
Well, I'm sorry to dispute that, but there are a lot of propaganda activities happening, especially on the media, and there are a lot of perpetrated lies that are being made, and a lot of videos that are made in the name of Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu. And I can tell you this, that a lot of these things are not true. Like I told you, talk is cheap, and this is what we don't do in the APC. And the APC youth, we are defined by 3 things. We are not defined by sentiments, but innovation, the media, and the grassroots mobilization. And this is what, as the youth, we will capitalize on. Initially, if you remember, I told you that as the youth, we have decided ourselves to champion this cause, especially the youth of the Northwest. This is what we are trying to do, to outshine our brothers from the Southwest in seeing how we can canvass the maximum number of votes for our candidate, Ashwaji Bola Ahmed Tinubu, and His Excellency Kashim Shettima. Now it is the youth that are talking to the youth and not the candidate that is talking to the youth, which is very much more important because we speak to them heart to heart. But whatever you see on the media regarding people knocking on doors, giving money in the name of Ashwaji Bola Ahmed Tinubu, those are pure lies. Those are propaganda activities, formulated by the opposition and not true.
I was taking a cue from where you just landed. You talked about how much you were mobilizing other youth. Now, in that regard, and then you say you're doing all of this on your own. So are you actually stating that you're bankrolling yourself, or who is bankrolling you in all of these campaign activities that you're doing?
Yeah, of course, we are bankrolling ourselves. We have been funding our activities. We have been going into nooks and crannies of the country without a single penny from any individual. I've never sat...
And you're not expecting anything afterwards?
Of course, we are expecting a seat on the table.
That's all you're expecting?
That's all we are expecting, a seat on the table. Let us have a say. Let us have, an avenue where we can express, where we can demonstrate our capacity, where we can demonstrate our intellectual capacity and the ability as the youth to get the job done as well. All we are asking for is someone that will give us an avenue. We know that we have the talent. We know that we are innovative. We know that we are intelligent. So we just need the avenue. And that's the seat on the table.
So now, you said that you're canvassing for maximum amount of votes. So how many millions of votes are you canvassing for your candidate? Because we've heard a lot of people say we're going to definitely deliver 15 million voters or 50 million electorates. And you just wonder, how do you want to do that? So how many are you canvassing for your candidate?
Well, like I'll keep telling you this times without number, that talk is cheap. We work with the reality. We do what's on ground. And as far as canvassing votes is concerned, like I told you, we are working tirelessly in terms of the media to see that how we can attract and accommodate the youth into this movement. And we are looking at the innovation aspect as well. We are bringing different innovation ideas, different innovative ideas, and different things that will attract the youth into this campaign. Thirdly, we are also going into nooks and crannies of the country. So I cannot specifically tell you a number, but
you're not putting a number to it.
I'm not putting a number to it, but just watch out.
Interesting.
Yeah. All
right. So now let's talk about what President Muhammadu Buhari stated during the recent conferment of national honors to over 400 awardees. He stated that he will be handing over a country free from insecurity to the next generation of leaders. Are you optimistic about this?
Yeah, of course I am. If we look at President Muhammadu Buhari, is someone that, let me put this in quote, is Mr. Talk and Do. Whatever he says, he shows, he demonstrates it practically. So I'm very optimistic, and I have positive hopes, positive thoughts regarding that statement.
So now your presidential candidate handle this?
Well, look, I'm very happy campaigning for this presidential candidate. I'm very happy with the fact that this man was given the opportunity. In fact, not only him, but all these presidential candidates were given opportunities at some point of time, and they've proven their ability to get the job done or otherwise. Now, I believe in Ashwaji Bola Ahmed Tinubu, and if you look at how he transformed Lagos in terms of all the subsectors of the economy, till date, he is the best governor in Nigeria has ever had. So if you take a look at what he did, I believe the best judgment to make on him is to have positive and high hopes on him that he can be able to handle this.
Now let's talk about the youth again. You have a particular youth who he does not know where the next meal is coming from with regards to poverty, because like they say that politics has been able to, we've monetized politics, yeah. And now poverty is not even doing any good. It has been that beast that eats it fat. True. Now let's talk about that sector. You talk about the particular youth who does not know where the next meal is coming from, and he is dead broke, but then he gets a politician who dangles money at him at the time and ask him, where is your PVC? Show me your PVC. And because of that, if you vote for XYZ person, I will give you XYZ amount of money. The next thing in his mind is, I want to feed my belly first before thinking about the next 4 years or 8 years. Now, in that regard, how do you as a youth, how do you speak to the conscience of that person? How do you conscientize or mobilize or sensitize such persons and tell the person that regardless of whatever you do now, if you sell your vote, because that has been the issue on ground since the Anambra or Osun Ekiti state elections, that's been the major, the elephant in the room. Now, how do you speak to such youth and tell them that if you mortgage your future generations or your future for a piece of porridge or a meal of porridge, the next 4 to or maybe 8 years, you have done a lot of bad to your people? How do you speak to such people?
Well, I'm very grateful with the fact that our youth are being very cautious when it comes to this whole election thing, and the youth are being. Our youth are intelligent, a matter of fact, and they're just waking up from their dreams. I mean, from their sleep, realizing that whatever we do now affects how and in what way and in what system we are going to be in the next 8 years. Now, whenever we have a round table or a discussion or an engagement with the youth, we tell them that the next administration is going to, define the food you eat, the security you and your parents will enjoy, the healthcare system you will enjoy. I mean, what you will be getting, the job, the employment opportunity you will be getting as the youth. So whatever you do now, it will replicate. I mean, will have an impact in the next 8 years. So we speak to them. We speak to their minds. We speak to their hearts. And one thing that we've experienced is. The youth have that sense of accommodation when you're talking to them as a youth. So that is why we have took it upon ourselves as a responsibility to go into nooks and crannies of the country, to walk the talk, to address these people, to tell them about who they are going to vote for, what they should expect in the next 8 years. So this is what we do, and we have been recording massive success.
Now, you talk about, say, you tell them who you're going to vote for. Now, I'm going to ask you 2 questions, and I'd like you to unbundle them in one breath. Now, with regards to your presidential candidate, let's talk about your party first. Now, give this same youth 3 reasons why after 7 years or 8 years, they should vote APC again, even though you keep talking about the mess that the other party has done for over 10 years. Yes, that aside. But give this same youth 3 reasons why they should bring your party again. That's on the side. And then secondly is your candidate. Give them 3 reasons why they should vote your candidate, Bola Ahmed Tinubu.
Well, thank you very much. First of all, how this government has invested in the past, since the inception of democracy in Nigeria. No administration has done well in terms of human capital development in Nigeria like this administration. And that is one of the reasons why every Nigerian youth should vote for the APC as a party. And secondly, we've seen, like I told you, the sincerity of purpose and how President Muhammadu Buhari's intention has driven this country forward, even though I admit that we have different flaws, but largely those 3 things that we campaigned about, we have tried our best in seeing that we have achieved a level of success in those 3 things we have campaigned about. And thirdly, you have to look about who is going to be the successor. Now, this is someone that was the governor of Lagos. This is someone that is the architect of Lagos. And Lagos, according to reports, a report by this day, it is Africa's 4th largest economy. We have 54 countries in Africa. Now, Lagos alone is surpassing 50 countries, including the most dynamic city in East Africa, which is Kenya. Now, today, according to different reports, that Lagos is the Africa's startup capital. It has surpassed a city like Nairobi in terms of startup development and in terms of giving the youth an avenue for their businesses and their innovations to thrive. Now, still on the Lagos, it is Africa's #1 investment destination in terms of digital infrastructure. And that alone is something where the youth have been able to be accommodated in one way or the other. So these are some important things that people should look at when voting for APC. Because the reality is we don't have to necessarily tell you to vote for APC, but since these candidates were given a level of opportunity in the past, and we can be able to analyze and measure the impact during their administrations and what they did, the antecedents, of course. So the bottom line is for them to look back and measure who they are going to vote for and how that candidate is going to be different from others.
Now, before we let you go, we actually saw the recent reports with regards to how the crisis they had in the political parties, different political parties in Zamfara state that actually caused the death of one person. Now, these days you just have politicians throwing jabs at each other. And then at the end of the day, the ripple effect goes down to the electorate, who always want to fight themselves or go down their throats for these politicians, who at the end of the day settles their scores in one dinner or the other. Now, what exactly should be, what are your thoughts, or what should you be telling these youth that regardless of all these things that you hear, political parties will definitely have their jabs that they throw at each other, but regardless, when you're having your campaigns, there should be peace, ensure peace regardless of all. Peace should be the number one thing.
You know, one important thing that is an element that causes havoc, that causes a lot of differences between the youth and Nigerians at large is sentiment. And that is what exactly our candidate can never be associated with anything in regards with sentiment. Now, you've seen how, we've seen a video of Mr. Obi, the presidential candidate of the Labour Party, that was telling the people, it was in a church, that he told people to wake up and take back their country. Now, those are the kind of statements that are damaging and they're influencing, and they're the major elements that are causing crisis, that are causing damage and loss of properties.
But you've also heard your presidential candidate make some statement, even a few days ago, he made some statement. I actually don't want to talk about it.
No, he didn't. I don't think he made any statement that is sentimental, but rather it is the other candidates of the party, the major parties we have, the PDP and the Labour Party, that made some statements that are defined by sentiments. But Ashoji Bola Ahmed Tinubu never made a statement that is associated with any sentiment, but rather it is the election period, and he was being political in his approach.
Okay, so quite a lot of things to talk about, but then our time is fast spent. Thank you so much for your time with us, Mohammed Mijiyawa. It's been a very wonderful time having this talk with you.
Thank you very much, Annabelle. And I want to tell Nigerians of the Northwest, don't let our brothers from the Northeast or from the Southwest or South, surprise us in terms of canvassing votes for these wonderful individuals. It is time for us to demonstrate our capacity as the youth and champion this cause. And
if you keep calling tribes, are you not being tribalistic there?
No, I'm not being tribalistic.
You talk about North, you talk about the South.
No, I'm just trying to take an advantage of the competition that is happening in canvassing votes, but I'm not being sentimental, of course.
We've been chatting with Mohammed Mijiyawa. He is a member at the Bola Ahmed Tinubu Media Center. And it's been a wonderful time here on The Conversation. I will definitely see you again next time. Keep watching The Conversation, because you never know who my next guest will be and what my next topic will be all about. Till I come your way again from the nation's capital, Abuja, I am Annabelle Oji. God bless Nigeria.